Morning, everybody. As you're joining us, we have another terrific session on a Monday morning. If it's South Africa time, you're joining on, and I'm really excited about this session. You know, this is with Conn Bertish, and every time we've put Conn in front of a customer, the feedback has always been the same: practical, real, and genuinely impactful. And what stands out for me is that Conn doesn't just talk about resilience. He's operated in environments where there's no room for error, sound familiar to some of us, no quick wins, and no one is coming to rescue you. And what he brings is how you translate that into how we show up every day in business, under pressure, and when things don't go to plan. I remember Robin Sharma saying once at an event that we booked him in for, that the companies owe it to their teams to bulletproof them for what's coming down the funnel. And I think that's exactly what this session is all about today. Because the reality is most of us won't face extreme environments like Conn, but we are expected to perform in this increasingly uncertain times. What stands out to me is that Conn doesn't just talk about resilience, he's lived it in multiple dimensions, from extreme environments to overcoming serious personal challenges like cancer. So, Conn, it's great to have you with us. And
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Hi, everybody. So I'm Conn Bertish, and I have some cool holes in my head. I don't know if you can see them. I'm a brain cancer survivor, and I like to make jokes about it because the one way to deal with stress and anxiety that we're all facing is just not to take things too seriously. We are not that important. And that's a lot of what I talk about when I talk about happy people are harder to kill. So happy people are harder to kill because they generally follow a purpose that's larger than themselves. And here's a good example. Here's a little kid. So I like to start my presentations with this little guy. Often I do a range of talks. This is one of my favorites. So he's a little Indonesian guy in northern Sulawesi, in the islands of Sulawesi. And he has learned how to ride a shark. He's riding a shark. He is riding a shark across the coral reefs. And he's learned which sharks to ride and which sharks not to ride, which reefs to find them, and how to grab onto their tails. And you can see pure joy in his eyes. So the interesting thing is, if you showed this to somebody in New York and said, "Oh, I'm just going down to ride a shark," they would be like, "What? That's completely insane." And the only reason that this little kid is able to do that is that he has different neural pathways. So he has grown new neural pathways that are different to somebody in an office in New York, because the more experiences we have as a human being, the more of these neural pathways we grow. And that's where I start working with the things that we find scary. So that to this little guy, that's not scary. He knows which sharks but to somebody in a different, but he might struggle with an escalator in a New York shopping mall. It's all about the things that we do, the experiences we experience in our lives, and how we deal with challenging things, how we either move away from them and avoid the things that are uncomfortable, or we move towards them and we grow these neural pathways in our brain. And we now know for the first time in human history that we are never helpless. So our brains are these incredible things. They're these beautiful sponges that take in everything. And currently, everything's kind of upside down and topsy-turvy, and people are living in fear and anxiety because of wars, AI, because of politics, because of economies. And anxiety is on not even on the rise, it's peaking. And a lot of what I do is to get my audience and my delegates to understand and realize that they are never actually helpless. So that's why I say, for the first time in human history, we now know that what you do, how you think, what you behave, how you behave, what kind of content you consume on a regular basis, how that can literally change the biologies of your cells. And that's the power of this neuroplasticity, which we knew theoretically in the 90s was a thing, but we were always told, no, you're either born a left brain person or a right brain person. But the reality is you can change that. We now know you can change your brain and your biology through the things you do. So you're never actually helpless because you can always have some kind of a positive effect on the outcome of a challenge if you handle it properly. And this guy, my father, Keith Bertish, taught us, my brothers and I, how to harness this power, this understanding of how we could affect an outcome purely by how we behaved in the challenge. So he was one of the pioneer surfers and sailors in South Africa and skiers. He was literally one of the first. That the top left one that's the first catamaran in Africa, heavy as hell, all block and tackle, wooden, heavy, just such a heavy boat. And he taught us these things up the west coast of South Africa, where we learned to sail and surf. He taught us to never fight the ocean. You can't fight the ocean. It's too big. It's too scary and too big. But you can't fight it and you can't run away from it. Rather, it's to move towards the thing that scares you or makes you feel uncomfortable. Learn about it, spend time with it, understand it. And then it's not scary. And then suddenly you grow these more neural pathways in your brain. And the more of those things, those experiences that push you out of your comfort zones, the more you engage with them, the more neural pathways you grow. And how your brain works, if you're faced with a challenge, when you're faced with a challenge, your brain tries to link your neural pathways to find a solution. And the more experiences you have, the more neural pathways you have to draw from. It's literally like a muscle. And so he taught these three brothers. So we've been called the Bertish brothers. We've been dubbed three brothers who are remarkably hard to kill. The guy on the left, the blonde guy, that's my older brother, Greg. The guy in the middle, that's my younger brother, Chris. And I'm the little guy with the white flotation device. And that's the three of us. Three little kids. It's kind of a famous photograph of three brothers surfing this giant wave. We've all been big wave surfers since we were in our teens. And some of us have taken it further. So I'm the guy on the left. I'm the guy who's had brain cancer. The guy in the middle, that's my older brother, Greg. He's just had his third open heart surgery. And he is literally surfing that wave with a metal valve in his heart. And my younger brother, guy on the right, he's the guy who paddled across the Atlantic for 3 months by himself on a stand-up paddleboard. So that's why a lot of people think that the Bertish brothers were dropped on our heads when we were kids, but it wasn't that. That was my first wave back after brain cancer. And that was my brother's first wave back after his open heart surgery. That's both of us riding the wave. And we've learned to deal with fear because I've been a Red Bull big wave surfer, and you learn how to deal with the challenges that are coming. And what you can't do is you can't fight a wave like this. The guy at the bottom there, he's going to get smashed. So he's got to stay completely relaxed and calm while he's underneath, and there's turmoil and he's all over the show, but you've got to stay calm and understand where you are, go into a meditative state so you can get back up to the top. It's how you handle these things which are scary. And basically the reality is that our world is scary, and it's going to get more scary, and we all need to prepare ourselves to be able to wipe out. And I like to say wipe out with style. You have to wipe out with style. You need to bounce forward because you're going to wipe out, and you need to embrace the fact that you're going to wipe out. Never fight the ocean. Use the wipeouts. It's the beautiful growth mindset. It's how you bounce forward. And one of the biggest examples of a wipeout that I've ever had was I was literally surfing as a Red Bull big wave surfer. I was the creative director of JWT in Cape Town after being the creative director of Saatchi and Saatchi. Cape Town had two beautiful little kids. I had a beautiful wife, Heidi. Everything was going well, but then I started slurring my words. I started getting these headaches. And then it was suddenly ended up going to a neurologist. We found this tumor in the back of my brain. It was emergency surgery. You've got to get this thing out of your brain within 72 hours. Otherwise, you're gonna pass out. And I was like, whoa, okay. But the interesting thing was, and this is what freaks out some people, but the first thing I did is I literally started playing with the potential that this might be a malignant cancer tumor. And it ended up being a very rare form of adult brain cancer. And as soon as I heard that, I started playing. This is actually the sketch, the original sketch I did before I went in for my first brain surgery. I did two brain surgeries over the course of 2 days, and I literally wrote this, preparing my brain to be a flexible thing, not to be a solid thing that could be broken, something that would bounce, that would move with the challenge. And it's corny as hell. And then I started augmenting these treatments, giving myself a role to visualize, engage, create videos, animations. I literally gamified my cancer from the get-go. Luckily, I had an oncologist who thought I was kind of crazy, but gave me the thumbs up to do my crazy stuff. And I literally brought my cancer to life in a way that I could participate in the process, augmenting the treatments. And I literally called it Mickey the tumor, and I was going to take the Mickey out of it. I was literally started messing with it. I was drawing on refuse bins. I paddled out to a ship and wrote on it, imagine your cancer was a ship and you're an ocean of I can sink it. I started doing graffiti, imagine your cancer with these birds and you were a clap of the hands. I really started engaging in every opportunity to link my mind to my body and participate in the healing process. And that is awesome because we now know that our minds and bodies are connected, and neuroplasticity tells us that when you engage in something that's fearful, it's not so fearful anymore. And that has a benefit on your immune function. So what I had done is I'd given myself a role in my own healing process together with medicine. I wasn't helpless. And traditional patients are helpless because traditional Western medicine doesn't give patients a way to participate. It gives them a drug or a pill and then tells them to go home. But I had a job to do, and my job was to augment the efficacy and have that mental and mind and body link. So my immune function was stronger over time. And when I ended up beating brain cancer, it surprised all these oncologists. And while going through my cancer, I started doing these sketches of other patients. And I'm not the greatest artist. I did them on sticky notes because after my surgeries and radiation, they said that I would lose memories. So I did them on sticky notes. And I did about 90 different portraits of these patients. And what I realized was that they weren't, if you look at their eyes were these dead eyes. And I realized like they weren't doing what I was. I was literally using the world as this metaphorical playground to bring my cancer to life so that I could participate with it. And these patients, which are these traditional patients, 30% of cancer patients fall into depression because that's the negative cycle of feeling helpless is based off the science of psychoneuroimmunology, is how you feel affects your immune function over time. So I was like, wow, so it's something brewing here. I need to do something. I went back to work and everyone was saying to me, oh, Conn, how are you? How are you, Conn? How are you doing? And I said, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And I would tell everybody I was fine, but I was just petrified that my cancer was going to come back. So I felt like I was living kind of a half life. I was playing it safe. I just felt like I was living in fear and I had to do something. And so for some reason, I've always wanted to be Banksy. So I put up this sign on the side of the road. I put it up at night, linked to an old cell phone. And I thought, like, who would call these crazy signs on the side of the road? And I got the first caller called me and he said, why should I call you? And I thought, wow, that is just fantastic. So I ended up putting 180 different signs around Cape Town. Everybody wanted to join this karate club. I had one mom, anyway, I won't go into detail. I don't have a lot of time, but I did 180 of these over the course of 2 years. Yep, alibis outside the High Court. I got calls. Can you get my brother out? Where can we meet? It stayed up, would you believe, for 5 days. Sexy time. Sexy time was one of the, I got lots of sexy time messages, but I also got, I started realizing how people, the drivers started playing with the signs and singing songs, coming up with their own funny words and signs. They were really, it broke people out of the mundanity of life. And I started to realize that people were really enjoying them. And then I did a shoot in LA, and I managed to jump off in New York and then I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I exhibited Kunst plus 27. It was up for 2 hours next to Yves Klein, and I got a call when I came back to South Africa to say, "Who is this? We've taken your sign down. Please call us." But they didn't. I didn't call them back. I called all of these people. They were at one point there were thousands of people who were linked to what I called my secret club, and that gave me so much. Every day I put up a sign, then I'd listen the next day on this phone to see who would call. They really made me feel like I was doing something in the face of fear. I was actually actively doing something to build my immune function by participating in the challenge. And then I thought, okay, I need to build something for patients. And so I started thinking about a mobile app that could feed patients with a participatory way in which they could be a part of their healing journey and essentially enable them with a purpose in that challenge. And I put out this video. I wrote on this chalk wall about changing the user experience for cancer patients. And I got a call from the two top professors of oncology in South Africa, Professor Jeanette Parks and Professor Alan Davidson. And they said, "Conn, we've got this conference. It's the biggest oncology conference in Africa. And the Minister of Health was supposed to open it, but he can't make it. So can you do it?" And I was like, "What?" And so I literally did a talk for the first time to a medical fraternity conference. I got a standing ovation. The oncologists all said, "Help us, we're missing a trick. The trick is the patient. We're not able to optimize the patient." And so that was it. I resigned from my job on April Fool's Day in a depression. I realized that was my job after beating brain cancer, was to help empower other people to deal with challenges. And I spent the first 6 months working in a cancer clinic, working with stage 4 patients, seeing if I could shift behavior from completely helpless to actively involved and purposeful. And it worked. And then I launched Cancer Dojo. Imagine your cancer is an ice cream and you are a heat wave. I used a lot of cognitive reframing therapy to do that. And I launched Cancer Dojo app. It won a whole bunch of awards. And then I started, imagine your cancer was Evander Holyfield's ear and you're Mike Tyson. Imagine cancer was apartheid and you're Mandela. Imagine cancer is physics and you're a Bollywood action hero, because Bollywood action heroes can do anything. So these are just some examples. And then I started this ideology about happy people are harder to kill, because happy people are following this purpose that's larger than themselves, and they're part of something, and they have an active way to deal with the challenge. Imagine your cancer is an 8-bit bad guy and you're a superpowered Italian plumber. And then I started to do these talks. I was invited to do talks all around the world. I've now done talks and training in over 20 different countries, to over 200,000 people, which is pretty radical. The insights are based purely off the helplessness that we humans feel when we are overwhelmed. And this insight into enabling people with a way to deal with challenges through purpose and through action, that is what I do now. And that is, I work with big corporations to help their staff find meaning in their work. The ShopRite group was huge. I had 162,000 staff who are now following a purpose that's relevant to the entity, the ShopRite Group and Checkers and all of them. And it's just incredible to see people find that they have agency in the world and that their job and their lives mean something. And as of next week, I know I shouldn't do this in my presentation, but what the hell? I've just got confirmed last week that I'm bringing out a Cancer Dojo workbook. It's literally like a doodle book for cancer patients that takes them through 16 chapters of behavior change, enabling them with content that links to online. And Discovery Health are going to partner with me on this excellent, very powerful behavior change book, which is great. And what's really cool is I'm working with the Unique Speaker Bureau too. How cool is that? So things are looking good. I'm very excited about this year and next, and the future as we grow more. And I guess my sign off is that purpose and action are the harder to kill resilience that the world needs for a changing world. Staff need that. Businesses need that. Everyday people need to find a way to become happier, healthier, and harder to kill. Because when you live with purpose, your immune function is stronger. And that is what I enable through my talks and through my training. So yeah, I'd love to have some questions. I'm going to decrease the size of my. Is everybody there?
Yeah, terrific, Conn. Thank you so much for an enlightening talk. Just after a short week, yesterday and this last weekend, we're all moving back into full-on work mode ahead of us. So, yeah, very inspiring, very encouraging, very motivating. So a lot of, on the call today is a lot of our customer managers, and they
Yeah.
generally join a call like this to get to know our speakers a little better, but also try and figure out how we can position you
Yeah.
properly with our customers, so that it's a no-brainer. So I
Good.
think I made it pretty clear, though. The conferences where you have maximum impact at. In other words, if a company is struggling with this, then they should
Yeah.
absolutely book you. I mean, who isn't struggling,
Exactly.
with trying to make their teams more resilient,
Yeah.
and more
Yeah.
creative? I mean, the way you just came up with, I was trying to think, gosh, if I was in a position like you, would I just start to, Richard Wright, you probably know him too. He's
I
also
know,
a
Richard.
cancer.
I
And,
know,
and he
Richard.
just says, yeah, he just said, just start something, just do something. And you just did that. You went out there and
Yeah.
and put your phone number out to
Yeah.
everybody and started having conversations, and just to see where it goes, and look where it built. And so I think you do send that message across, but it really is inspiring. So yeah, I mean, help us. What should our customer managers be doing more of with you? And our customers
Okay.
are on the call too.
Yeah.
How do they position you with their
Yeah.
stakeholders as a no-brainer?
Yeah. I think, look, the reality is that this is a universal insight. So when I talk about, I use cancer because that's my story, but now my story is empowering mostly brands, businesses, and employees, because the insights are exactly the same. It's exactly the same. And people are feeling completely overwhelmed. They're feeling anxious. They're worried about all these things, and that affects their work. It affects their work. It affects their mental health. It affects the burden of cost for businesses. So it's a people are and when people feel helpless, all those negative things happen. So what I do is I'm able to, one, give an inspiring talk that shows them, wow, there is a way to deal with this. And then what I can also do is I can do workshops with brands. I can literally do a talk and a workshop, which have been very beneficial. So earlier this year, I was invited to Estonia, would you believe? And the brief was, Conn, can you come to Estonia? We want you to save the Estonian economy. And I was like, what? Really? And they said yes, because most people are worried about Ukraine, but we've still got Russia skirmishing on our borders all the time. We have a citizenship who are in a state of panic and worry, and a lot of the IT professionals are leaving Estonia to go to other safer nations. And I went out to Estonia and I spent some time there, and I found this amazing, just by talking to people, I found this amazing thing called Nurtikus. And Nurtikus was an Estonian phrase that the pioneer forefathers used to use. And it was called smart, quick, resilient. And I brought it back to life for the audience. And I did two. I did a workshop. I did a keynote talk the first day. And I'm proud to say, because I've never had two in a row, I had got a standing ovation from my keynote talk. And the next day I did a 2-hour workshop with about an audience of about 100 people. And I brought Nauticus to life for them. And so every delegate walked away, and I literally it's the first time I've ever got a standing ovation from a workshop. True story. Wow. I was like, wow, now I'm proud. But all the delegates walked away with a way to deal with their challenge that was relevant to who they were. And that's a lot of the work that I do. So if I work with brands, I will curate my keynote talk, or my workshops, or my creative incubators, or whatever. I do them all, but I curate it in line with the brand that's bringing me there. And because I've been a creative director of big advertising agencies, I know how to craft ideas, and I'm a storyteller, and I use my storytelling and my insights into dealing with challenges like we're all dealing with, to empower people with a way forward. And that's kind of my art, and that's my purpose. And I love it so much because it makes me harder to kill, because I'm enabling people with ways to think, wow, can I really do this? Yes, you're allowed to do this. Wow, okay. This is really how to deal with a challenge? Yes. And when you see the light switch on, it is absolutely remarkable. And it's not this isn't a sales pitch. This is the best thing that I do, is to enable people, just nudge them to realize the agency they have to deal with a challenge, and to get themselves out of kind of what I call the funk, which was that scribbly thing in my presentation, that a lot of cancer patients live under this funk, this fear of what's going to happen. Ooh, and then they pull back. And employees all around the world are pulling back. Staff are pulling back because they're worried about AI, they're worrying about being retrenched, they're worried about all these things. And to just give them a way to go, okay, I'm going to move forward, as opposed to pull back. Never fight. They're all fighting the ocean. And I enable them ways to move, understand how to move. I have a talk called Surfing Cats and the Art of Pivotability, which trains people to deal with challenges by being agile, to change their mindsets of where they've been, to then adopt something new. And all of my talks are fun. I generally jump off the stage. If this wasn't a virtual session, I would have jumped off the stage and picked someone in the audience, probably not Paul, maybe Joshua. I would have picked to touch. I would have challenged you. Has anybody touched a human brain before? And then everybody's quiet. So my brain at the back, it was too dangerous to put the bone back. So you can actually touch my brain at the back. And then when I would go to Joshua and say, Joshua, touch the human brain. And then he would touch my brain. And as he touches it, I go, geez. And then everybody laughs like hell. And Joshua kind of laughs, but he also weeps a little bit. And this is how I run my sessions. It's fun, it's engaging, but it's based off very hard science. And the reason why, when I do my talks, I always said I have a medical team, because when I moved from advertising, being this ad guy, I was overly concerned that I'd be called a creative quack, because I was dealing with cancer patients. And so everything I do is based off hard science. And that's all of the tools that are now in my Cancer Dojo workbook. It's all based on science, and it's not about anything nothing is complicated. It's just how do you augment yourself by shifting your behavior and doing things differently and finding a way through something to build your immune function, or build your optimism, and build your agency to deal with scary challenges. And it really works. I mean, it's based off the hardest. I guess that's kind of where my art form comes from. It's literally, I mean, it's interesting how I shared with you guys, because you're kind of part of my team now, is the work I do that I've done for like the ShopRite group, and I'm doing with Sunlum and Hyprop and all these bigger corporations. It's the same methodology that I would talk across a a cafe, a coffee table, to a 14-year-old brain cancer patient who I did literally. It's the same methodology. It's giving people a way to deal with a challenge, because when us humans, when we're helpless, we think there is no way and you pull back, but you can. And that's the work that I do. And where it's relevant for your clients is that I approach the whole thing from who they are, because every business is different. And I don't have a generic approach. My approach is linked to who they are and how I can tailor the message so that it's relevant to their staff, because they work there. It's not a one size fits all.